Closing arguments are underway in Alex Murdaugh's double murder trial. The jury now back in the courtroom after visiting effectively the scene of the crime, his Moselle estate, earlier today.
Prosecutors started the arguments by saying that there is only one person who could have committed these crimes.
The defendant was the one person who was living a lie. The defendant is the person on which a storm was descending. And the defendant is a person where his own storm would actually mean consequences for Maggie and Paul and consequences for those who trusted him. And that person is the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
We want to bring in now Vinoo Varghese. He is a white-collar criminal defense attorney, a former prosecutor, and a member of the teaching faculty at Harvard Law School's Trial Advocacy Workshop. Good to have you with us. Let's talk about what we just heard. The prosecution making their closing arguments now, painting this picture of Alex Murdaugh as a chronic abuser of drugs, who was suffering from withdrawal, who was trying to keep one step ahead of everybody catching on to him. Are they doing an effective job, given the other hurdles that they're up against? Lack of weapon, really some questions about motive, and potentially other people who might want those two, Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, to not be alive anymore. Is the prosecution being effective in keeping together all these different pieces of thread?
So to answer that question, you've got to look at something he said, which is use your common sense, is what he told the jurors. The problem is that there is nothing about this case that falls in line with common sense.
Yeah.
It's not common sense to think that you're going to distract investigators from all your financial misdeeds by killing your family. I mean, that is a crazy theory or motive to ascribe to somebody. I guess they had to come up with something because there's no physical evidence tying Murdaugh to these murders. And so the answer to your question is, I think he's got a problem. The answer is no, short answer. He's got a problem because he's asking he's appealing to common sense. But again, no one's going to believe, at least I think, no one should, in their right mind, will believe that, okay, you know what? I got all these financial charges on the wing. I'm going to get arrested for this. So I'm going to kill my wife and kid, when there's been no testimony or anything put forth that he had a reason to do so. The other thing here is that his defense team put on 14 witnesses. This is extraordinary. He has what we call in the law a full-throated defense. And he put on an alternate theory that there were two shooters. He got on the stand and testified and appeared sympathetic, controlled the course of the conversation, and has given himself a winning chance. As an outsider looking at this, I thought, it was a desperate act. What else is he going to do? But it may ultimately prevail. I mean, we'll find out soon.
And the context, of course, is that, well, he would know how to cover a crime up, considering he's part of this prosecution dynasty that goes back generations. So then what do you make of this crime scene visit that the jurors went on today? I guess the defense was supportive of this, but in your view, for jurors who may not be convinced by the personality shortcomings, what would a crime scene visit today possibly have changed for anybody?
Well, it was a bit unusual. I thought it was an unusual move by the defense to do that. You would think the prosecution would have wanted them to do that, if anything. So now that the defense is doing it, I think it's just another thing that they're going to argue that, look, we don't have anything here. We took you to the crime scenes. We're the one who took you to the crime scene, not the prosecution, and maybe perhaps make that argument in their closing argument.
Vinoo, I'm curious, given your experience as both a defense attorney and as a prosecutor, how would you go about resting your case in today's closing arguments, especially because what is clear in all of this is that Alex Murdaugh has lied many times to law enforcement personnel, including that he has a problem with drugs, that he has admitted to stealing lots of money, millions of dollars. And so the jury isn't likely going to be particularly sympathetic with him as a character. Do you think that the prosecution, given what you said before, still has the ability to win this jury over?
Sure. I mean, they're throwing up a lot of stuff up there, right? That he's a bad guy. And so, the prosecution wants you to believe that because he is a fraudster, he had a motive to kill his wife and family. Let's think about that and take that in consideration. That on its own, to me, sounds far-fetched. But when you add on all this stuff, and then you add on the drug abuse that Murdaugh admitted to, then you think, okay, maybe this guy could have done it. Now, is that enough for proof beyond a reasonable doubt? I don't believe so. But then you have the fact that he lied about his alibi initially, and he admits to all of this. I think that's Murdaugh's biggest problem, is that he hasn't had a consistent story in his defense. And I think that, if anything, could potentially put the jury over the top.
All right, we'll keep you close as we continue to listen into these closing arguments. Vinoo Varghese, thank you for joining us today.